North Point, thanks so much for taking the time to log in today. I got to tell you, we're a little over 6 months into this interruption of meeting weekly. And I know that even before COVID started, we had a good chunk of people who joined us weekly primarily through online venues, whether it was our YouTube, Facebook, whatever. And I know that continues to be the case. And what I want to do is I want to take a moment and just really express my gratitude to you for during these last 6 months for continuing to log in and join us as we go through this journey as best as you can. For a lot of you, you're in the Springfield area, and you know what it's like to be at one of our campuses. And you've been joining us online for several months. And for a lot of you, you live outside the area. And we consider you part of our family too. North Point is not about a location. North Point is about a vision and a mission to help create places for people to find and follow Jesus, whether that's at one of our venues, one of our expressions, or even here online. So thank you. It means a lot to me. And I got to tell you, though, I do miss, I know for some of you I haven't seen in 6 months, and I miss you. And I look forward to seeing you soon. We are getting closer to be able to opening up indoors our services. In the meantime, we have our 5 different locations. We're doing pop-ups. We're doing everything possible with our team right now to create pockets of experience for community and to have a service together. And we're doing that throughout the area, and we'll continue doing that for the next month or so. But we are getting closer to having a meeting back indoors date. And I know for some of you, you're waiting for that. I just want you to know we haven't forgotten you. You are valuable to us, and we thank you for joining us online. Well, today we're starting a brand new series, and it's talking about there's the stories that Jesus told in Scripture, and stories are a big deal. Jesus was the master storyteller. He was a wordsmith, and he would paint a picture, and that's important because words are part of our vocabulary, but our minds are not dictionaries. Our minds are photo galleries, right? And so Jesus, understanding that, didn't just chuck a bunch of words at people. He painted pictures. And often he would say his version of once upon a time, and he'd tell a story. And we're going to look at these stories. Stories are powerful because it talks to us about principles that we can understand behind the characters and the crisis and the plot and the twists in the story. And that's why stories are so powerful. And education sometimes is so linear. And some of you are very linear in your mind, and it works for you. But a lot of us, we need something more than linear. We need something practical. And that's what I love about the stories Jesus told. It would always have a practical meaning. Even in our own education, sometimes it wasn't practical. Some of the lessons we learned or the classes we took weren't very practical, or even some of the ways we learned to type. I remember taking a keyboarding class. We didn't have computers really at the time, but we had keyboarding class, and we had to learn the alphabet and in a whole different arrangement, because I grew up learning it like most of you, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, and that just doesn't make sense. Nowadays, I think they should teach the alphabet in a way that's more practical, right? It shouldn't be A, B, C, D, E, F, G. It should be A, S, D, F, G, H, J. It should be a lot more practical for us of how we're going to utilize the alphabet. And what we look at today, we're going to look at these parables of Jesus, and all of them have a very practical message that we can apply right away. So the very first thing I want to walk through is this idea of parables being defined for our series. The parable defined, at least today, is this: an earthly story with a heavenly meaning. A parable is an earthly story with a heavenly meaning. It's a story that's very practical, a story that's very familiar about a kingdom and a place that is very unfamiliar. See, Jesus, fully God and fully man, sent from heaven to earth to reveal the heart of the Father, to reveal the nature of this thing called the kingdom. So that's why you're going to see in the books of Matthew, Mark, and Luke, you're going to see this word called kingdom often. And Jesus tries to describe this kingdom because a lot of times people thought heaven or relationship with God would be like the best things of earth, but even better. Like for me, I think of it like this. The best things of earth are you eat pizza, but you could do it without calories maybe in heaven. Or maybe heaven is like the best things of earth. You can fly, it's transportation, but even better, But Jesus was saying it's not like the best the earth has to offer and a little bit better. He's saying the kingdom is totally different. And to be able to help people understand the kingdom, he would often tell the story. There was a curator named Thomas Campbell, and he was the former director of the Met, the New York Art Museum, and he used to play a game as a curator. It was called the Curator's Game, and what he would do with his staff, every week he would start off the week by showing them just a little picture. And this would be a snapshot of something that was in the art. And then the challenge was, who could be the person to guess what art piece this little snapshot come from? For example, here would be a picture of a window. And at the beginning of the week, he would show this window. And then the challenge is, which of the 2 million pieces of art contained at the New York Met does this picture come from? And in this example, you can see it comes from the American Gothic, right? It's the background window. And the curator's game is what it became known as, is he would take just a little piece of a picture, and it would help people explore and discover and dig in to see what it was all about. And what we're going to do in this series is we're going to play our own version of the curator's game. We're going to look at this little snapshot of the kingdom and then wrestle with it and try and discover what is it all about. And we're going to do that every week in this series called Moral of the Story. And at the end of every time together, we're going to look at this particular story that we're looking at for the day. And then we're going to say, okay, what is the moral of the story? So what is the one part of the principle of a higher kingdom that Jesus was trying to tell us? Well, there's 36 parables in Scripture, depending on how you count the parables, but roughly around 36 of them. And most of them are less than 250 words apiece. They're brilliant stories told by the wordsmith Jesus. Each one of them is a painting, intricately detailed like photos at the Met. So each week we're going to look at these. Why did Jesus talk in parables? Well, a couple of reasons primarily. Number one is to hide truth from those who weren't interested. He wanted to hide truth from those who weren't interested. There were some people who weren't interested in what he had to say. They were interested more in their own agenda. They were interested in the political opportunities maybe that were around them. They weren't interested in the truth of the kingdom. As a matter of fact, that's why Jesus ended up getting nailed onto a tree, is because people weren't interested in his kingdom principles. They were interested in their kingdom's prosperity. The second reason why Jesus spoke in parables is to reveal truth to those who were interested. So it's interesting. He would use a parable to hide truth or to reveal truth. And it would be the same parable, but the response determined whether the truth was revealed. And I think that has a challenge to each of us. That when we open up Scripture, this ancient Hebrew and Greek manuscript has the opportunity to reveal principles of the kingdom if we're open to it. Here's what Jesus said about when he was asked, why do you keep speaking in parables? He says in Matthew chapter 13, he says, that's why I tell stories, to create readiness, to nudge the people toward receptive insight. In their present state, they can stare till doomsday and not even see it. Listen till they're blue in the face and still not get it. I don't want Isaiah's forecast repeated all over again. And here's what the prophecy was. Your ears are open, but you don't hear a thing. Your eyes are awake, but you don't see a thing. The people are blockheads. They stick their fingers in their ears so they won't have to listen. They screw their eyes shut so they won't have to look, so they won't have to deal with me face to face and let me heal them. Time out for a second. That's fairly vivid imagery Jesus is painting there about the people who don't want to hear and aren't interested in the kingdom. He calls them blockheads with their eyes screwed shut and their fingers in their ears. He says, but you have God-blessed eyes, eyes that can see. You have God-blessed ears, ears that can hear. A lot of people, prophets and humble believers among them, would have given anything to see what you're seeing, to hear what you're hearing, but they never had a chance. So we have a question for each of us. Do we want to be the type of people that Jesus said are blockheads, not listening, not seeing? Or when we come to Scripture, do we lean in and say, God, I want my eyes to see what you see. I want my ears to hear. So let's let these parables reveal truth, not hide truth. So as I want to go forward with kind of this thought of the same scripture can reveal or could hide. We got this spatula here, just a rubber spatula, and there was a study that they had done with little kids, 6-month-old kids. They had put a bunch of them in this nursery, and they had placed a rubber spatula in the crib of a bunch of these 6-month-olds. And then with another whole batch of kids, or a gaggle of kids, or whatever you would call a herd of kids, they would take the rubber spatula and they would just kind of put it in their mouth and force it in their mouth. So half the kids, they just place the spatula in the crib. The other half of the kids, they force it in their mouth. And here's what they saw. The cribs that they had taken the spatula and forced it into the mouth of those in the cribs, those people automatically just started rejecting the spatula. They didn't want some stranger stuffing the spatula in their mouth. But the kids who were in the group where the spatula was just placed in the crib, they ended up predominantly grabbing the spatula and putting it in their mouth. And so there's a lot of things that we can try and draw from this study is maybe kids, do they like to chew on spatulas? Do they not? Are they fickle-minded? We don't understand that. Or maybe the conclusion is what the scientists said, is that when a kid is forced to chew on a spatula, he wants nothing to do with it. But a kid out of their own curiosity, when it has an opportunity, is going to reach for the spatula and put it in their mouth. And when it comes to Scripture, and Jesus said his whole purpose of parables is this. Some of you, your spiritual journey, you've had your faith forced down your throat as a kid, and that's why you rejected it, because you felt like it was forced on you. And Jesus isn't coming to cram nothing down your throat. He's coming to say, here's the truth. Do you want the truth? If you want the truth, pick it up. So today we're going to start with a story. It's a story of the two builders. And some of you might be familiar with the story if you spent much time in church. Let me read this story for us today. In Matthew chapter 7, it says, "Therefore, everyone who hears these words of mine is like a wise man who builds his house on the rock." Let me say that again because I read that wrong. Therefore, everyone who hears these words of mine, these were the 5 words I skipped the first time, and puts them into practice is like a wise man who builds their house on a rock. It's not about hearing the words of Jesus that makes you wise. It's about hearing the words of Jesus and don't skip those next 5 words and puts them into practice. When you hear the words and put them into practice, you're like a wise man who built his house on a rock. The rain came down, the streams rose, the winds blew and beat against the house, yet it didn't fall because it had its foundation on the rock. Why didn't it fall? It had its foundation on the rock. But everyone who hears these words of mine and doesn't put them into practice is like a foolish man who built his house on the sand. The rain came, the streams rose, the winds blew and beat against the house, and it fell with a great crash. So you got 2 different builders, 2 different homes, 2 different foundations, and we're talking about building today. What are we building? Now, I'm not a great builder. I got to tell you, we just returned the last couple of weeks from dropping our girls off at college. And that's always a really awkward few days for me because we go there and, they're getting set up in their dorm. And it was not like that when I was going to college years ago. Like I stuffed my trunk full and I didn't have a decoration or anything. It took me about 10 minutes to set up my dorm. But it is a production nowadays, at least for my girls. I mean, it is like a 2-day process for the girls to get the right frames and the right pictures and the right pillowcases and, a duvet and all types of stuff. And so here's what we realized early on. I'm no good at building stuff or decorating stuff in their dorms. As a matter of fact, I've tried. I've gone to Walmart. I've gotten a shelf. How hard is it to put up a shelf? You got like a piece of wood and 8 screws, and I mess it up. I'm terrible at building that. So now, and here's another thing that's probably to be fair, my attitude's probably probably the only thing worse than my building ability when I'm in a room, in a dorm room, in a girl's dorm room trying to decorate. And so Leanne invents things for me to do. So she'll send me on assignments, and I know it's a completely made up assignment just to get me out of the area, so I don't keep asking the question, when are we going to be done? It looks good enough in here. So she'll send me to Target when the girls are decorating their dorm. And so I got an easy deal. I'm supposed to go and I'm supposed to just pick up these different supplies at Target, command strips would be like my deal. And so how hard is it to mess it up? I go to Target, I find the command strips. They're nowhere close to the Twix, but I get the Twix and then I go to the command strips. I get there, I buy the command strips. I come back to the dorm room with a plastic Target bag filled with command strips, thinking I am going to be like absolutely adored and praised because this guy, Bob the Builder, brings back the right command strips. And I even brought back the wrong command strips. I didn't know there were such thing as wrong command strips. Apparently there are, and I found them naturally, right? I'm just not qualified to talk to you about building, decorating, anything. But here's the good news. And this is my next point on this. This story isn't about building a house. This story is about building a life. This story is about building our faith. This story is about building a foundation and a legacy that can hold you up for the test of time. And that's what we're going to talk about today. And I don't know what you're bringing to the table for this conversation is. Maybe you're in the middle of a stormy season. Maybe you've got things beating against you. Maybe you got things pouring down on you. Maybe you've got some trouble rising, just like this story that Jesus painted 2,000 years ago. And maybe right now you're wondering about the foundation of your marriage. Maybe you're wondering about the foundation of your integrity, about the foundation of your parenting, about the foundation of your own faith. Because when bad times come, that's when our foundation is super important. So as we look at this story, there's another telling of this same parable in the book of Luke. And in Luke, it says this: not only did he build his house on the foundation, Luke describes it this way, that the wise builder dug deep and had a big foundation, had a strong foundation. He dug deep. And that's important when it comes to foundations. So I want to talk about this idea of going deep. In New York City, and I don't know if you've been in New York City, one of my favorite skylines to see is New York City, and a fascinating city. A few things that are of note of New York City. There are 6,000 miles of sewers. 6,000 miles of sewers in New York City that circulate 1.3 billion gallons of wastewater. That's a lot of wastewater. There are 9,000 manholes within the city of New York that service these sewers, and 92,000 miles of utilities, cable underneath the surface. There are 722 miles of subway tracks in New York City alone. That's long enough to go from New York City to Chicago if you were to stack all the subway tracks within New York City, and that's all under the surface. Matter of fact, when the subway first opened, it was quite an attraction. People would go down below the ground to see this amazing subway. And what they would do is they would explore the tracks, because you got a city that everyone sees, but now with a subway, you got a city under the city, 700 plus miles of city under the city. And people literally would walk along these tracks as a big attraction. And the subways weren't going near as fast as they are nowadays. And so when a subway would come, they'd hear it coming, and they weren't moving as fast. And so you can easily get out of the way. So you can spend your days exploring the subway tracks. And then when the subway was coming, you would jump out of the way. They would call those people dodgers. They would literally dodge the track. And that's actually where they get the name, the Brooklyn Dodgers, comes from. That pretty famous attraction back in the day in Brooklyn when the subway was put in there. And now they're the LA Dodgers, and now they're probably going to win the World Series. But bottom line is this idea of a city underneath the city. Underneath there's a picture. I want to show you this picture. As you see this picture, what you're looking at is something called the Manhattan Schist. The Manhattan Schist, which is a big rock formation underneath New York. And as you see that picture, you're going to see the skyline there. And then the subterranean is that Manhattan schist. And what you're going to see is the tallest skyscrapers are located where they have access pretty nearby underneath the ground to be able to lay the foundation on that bedrock. And you'll see the Rockefeller Center is pretty close when you go to New York to the foundation of the Manhattan schist. And then you'll also see some places like the Woolworth Center was 120 feet above the surface of the dip of the Manhattan schist. And they had to drill 69 pillars 120 feet deep just to get down to the bedrock. And you'll see when you notice it, the city kind of mirrors the proximity to the bedrock being close. Here's what you're going to see. No matter what you're building, you have to find bedrock, because that's where geotopical engineers come into play. That's what they say is, in order to have a good foundation, you have something solid you're building on. Let me show you another picture. Some of you are very familiar with this picture. This is the picture of the tower, or the leaning tower of Pisa. Pisa is a town that literally means marshy land. That's what Pisa means, marshy land. And that might give you a little hint of why the Tower of Pisa wasn't originally named the Tower of Pisa. Its original name, or the Leaning Tower of Pisa, the original name was the Tower of Pisa. History has proven to rename it the Leaning Tower of Pisa. It is 180 feet tall, but it leans 18 feet. And it's because of the soft soil, and the foundation is very shallow in this marshy land. And so they've had to do a lot of reconstruction since the 12th century to be able to keep this afloat. As a matter of fact, they've been able to raise it a little bit higher because it was so dangerous. The difference between the towers that you're going to see, the skyscrapers that we're going to see in modern days, and back in the 12th century is the understanding of the power of a foundation. So let's go back to our story here. Foundation. The story is about a foundation. The story is about a spiritual foundation. And just as the skylines in New York or the Leaning Tower of Pisa, which of those best represents your faith? For some of you, right now, you feel like the Leaning Tower of Steve, the Leaning Tower of Debbie, the Leaning Tower of Jeremy, whatever it might be, right? Like you feel like, I'm not making it. I'm barely surviving. Matter of fact, anything could happen. The next big storm, I'm done. Maybe it's a parenting challenge. Maybe it's a financial challenge. Maybe it's a physical challenge. Whatever it might be, you feel like, man. And so today's a day to investigate what is our faith built on. In this story, a couple of things that we can jot down. The first is both houses faced similar weather. Both of these houses face similar weather. And that is great news. And it's also terrible news. Let me tell you why it's good news. The good news is this, you can endure tough weather if you've got a solid foundation, and it's not going to send you into a crisis. That's good news. The bad news is this. Doesn't matter who you are, you're going to face bad weather. The moral of the story is not the wise builder never had a storm. The moral of the story is not choose a better weather zone, a better climate to build a house. This story has nothing to do with the climate in which you live. This story has everything to do with the foundation upon which you build. That it says in Scripture that it rains on the just and the unjust alike. That means good people are going to experience bad things. And it doesn't mean that God isn't good. It means that God's not done. And it means that the point of following God isn't to live storm-free. The point of following God is to not crash during the storm. Both of these houses face the same weather. But the house that lasted had a different foundation. The house that lasted had a different foundation. One of these men heard what Jesus said. The other man did what Jesus said. And that's the moral of the story. Our foundation is what we do with what we hear. Is one person listened to the words and did what they said. It says when the wise people hear the words of Jesus and do what they said, do what he says. But not so the foolish man. He doesn't do what it says. So my question for you is, how is your obedience? Because the obedience that we have towards God is a sheer connection to the stability we have in life and in our faith. Following Jesus is not about decoration. It's about renovation and excavation. Following Jesus isn't about adding a couple pictures, adding a cool habit in your life, isn't about bringing on Christian culture. Following Jesus is about renovation and excavation. It's removing some dirt in your life that you need to get out of there. It's looking at some of the cracks in your foundation and not trying to cover it and putting a throw rug on top of it, but to say, okay, what do I need to do to renovate and to bring more stability in my life? Here's what's crazy, is we've all seen cracks in our foundation and our integrity and our character. Those are God's gift to us to let us know we've got to excavate, renovate, to dig deeper. Our problem is not the surface issue. Our problem is not patching up the crack. What we need to do is dig deeper below the surface and address the issue that God wants us to address. That's how we have a solid foundation. Some of you might be fooled into thinking that you're doing well in your faith just because things look good. Some of you might be fooled into thinking you're doing well in your marriage because your Christmas card's pretty shiny. But bottom line is, what are the cracks? What are we doing to address them? And say, Spirit of the living God, let me go deeper than the surface and build a solid foundation that my marriage can withstand even tough times. My parenting relationship can withstand tough times. That my faith can withstand even the worst of times, and even at the very end, if I have to die, I'll die in faith, because that's what Jesus modeled. Jesus didn't model a storm-free existence. Jesus modeled a rock-solid faith. As a matter of fact, he said to Peter, and Peter is a play on words, and the Greek word, it means Petros, means rock. Upon this rock, I will build, my kingdom. That's what Jesus was saying, is on a rock, on a solid. We don't want the sinking sand, we want the solid rock of obedience is what we see. So what's the moral of this story? The moral of the story is simply this. Our spiritual foundation is built on application, not information or inspiration. Application. The moral of the story that Jesus told 2,000 years ago about a wise builder and a foolish builder was not when they thought the end would come, was not what they believed about the expression of the Holy Spirit, was not anything less than doing what they heard, putting into practice the principles of Scripture. So my question for you is, what is even your faith built on? Was it built on remorse of feeling bad for the life that maybe you had lived? Is it built on inspiration that you feel like, man, I'd like to improve my life? Is it built on effort of like, man, I need to really try and be a good person? Or is it deeper than that? Have you ever got to the spot where you said, God, search my heart, search my soul. Come into my life, excavate. I don't need a decorated life. I need a remodeled life. God, I need you to excavate my life. I need you to dig deep and build a foundation. I need you to forgive me of my sin. And from this day forward, let Jesus Christ and Jesus only be the center of my life. And that's way better than Christian culture. That's way better than human strategy and self-help and trying to improve and not feel as guilty. But when you say, God, without you, I'm empty, dig down deep. Here's the truth. We are going to face storms, and some of you don't have to be very creative to believe me because you're in the middle of a storm. When that storm comes, storms don't build your faith. Storms reveal your faith. And the last thing you should do is wait for a storm to wonder if you've got the foundation that could stand up in a storm. I realize this is a unique time in human history. And I realize for some of you, your world's shaken. Your habits are interrupted. Your even Christian community, your good habits are interrupted. And maybe you felt that kind of making your faith lean. Today's a day to let your faith be bigger than any habit or any discipline. Today's a day to say, Spirit of the living God, today, meet me where I'm at. Let me begin to build my life on you. And we put it into play. A lot of us pray for God's favor. You know what's probably a lot more powerful than praying for God's favor? Is praying for God's character. And that is revealed as we just take the hard truths of Scripture and we don't resist them, but we pick them up and we begin to take them into our lives. The parable will hide the truth if you don't want to hear it. But today, if you want to have the truth revealed, this parable can help you. So let's dig deep. Let's build the kind of life that will last. Father, today, let us apply this Scripture in a way with some healthy next steps so we can stand the test of time. In Jesus' name, amen.